What's up, Bivy Tribe? Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be doing our fourth video in our gear guide for new backpackers. If you missed some of the previous ones where we talked about sleep systems and planning your trip, make sure to jump back and watch those. Today we're going to be talking all about shelter systems, as there are lots of different types of shelter systems and they can cater to different needs. So let's dive in. I've broken shelters out into 4 different systems. You have tents, teepees, tarps, and bivvies. Inside of those, I hope that those are going to cover the bulk of all the different types of shelter systems out there, and we can cover some of the pros and cons. So let's start with tents, as they're the most commonly used. Now, some of the things that are pros about tents, they usually have bug nets to keep you protected from there. A lot of them have bathtub floors, which keep you more protected on your underside. Obviously, you're going to have rain flies that are going to keep the rain off of you. And then a good tent will also be very well vented. Tents do have multiple poles, which usually means that they also have more weight than some of the other options available. With those multiple poles, though, that also means that you're going to get more headroom and more usable space for the footprint size that you have. Some tents do offer the ability to be more modular, which means if you're not worried about bugs, you would be able to drop the bug net portion out of it, maybe use the footprint and just the rain fly, or even just the rain fly. That's a really nice feature to have, because even though you've got all those extra poles, you can drop off some of the weight of the tent. Next up on our list is a teepee. Teepees are very similar to tents, however, they only use one pole in the center of them. That's going to cut down on weight. Sometimes you can even use a trekking pole for those on the smaller teepees, but they're going to still give you a lot of the same coverage as a tent. The thing that you do lose is you lose some of that headroom. The thing that you gain is you lose some of the weight of a tent. One thing to note with a teepee is sometimes they have floors, sometimes they do not. So make sure that if you need a floor, you're looking at that as you're shopping them. So again, a teepee to me is going to be a great option if you want something that's similar to a tent, but you want to cut out some of the weight of that in exchange for a little bit less headroom. Next up on our list is tarps. Tarps are an extremely customizable option and ultra light. Now, tarps are typically going to be pitched either over the top of a hammock or on the ground. If you are pitching them on the ground, you're going to need some way to hold them up. You could still attach them to trees and sleep on the ground, but a lot of people are going to be pitching these with their trekking poles. Tarps are a BYOF system, which means bring your own floor. They're not going to come with a floor, so if you need a floor, you need to bring it yourself or figure out some kind of an option there. If you're looking for an extremely customizable piece, one that you can use as a sunshade at one point in the day and as a shelter as the weather turns bad, but still be ultra lightweight, a tarp is a great option. The last system we're going to cover today is the Bivys system. A Bivys system can work really, really well in specific situations. Bivys can be a little bit harder to use as a standalone piece, but they can work really, really well under a tarp, which is how most people are using them. They don't give you a whole lot of room to move around or anything like that, which is why they're extremely practical, and especially if you need to be extremely light. A few things to be aware of with Bivys: if you get a completely waterproof version of a bivy sack, it also means that it is probably completely unbreathable. And if you get a completely unbreathable one, it's going to be cold during the night, because if you sweat at all or there's any condensation that gets into that, you're going to be stuck with that the rest of the night and then have to dry it out in the morning. So some of the better bivvies right now are waterproof on the bottom, water resistant on the top, and then they're obviously going to have mesh for you to breathe out of. Again, bivvies can work really well in correlation with tarps or as a standalone unit. However, they are going to be a little bit more specific, and really they're going to work well for the people that want to be ultra light. So let's talk about a few other aspects that might be important when you're choosing your shelter system. First off, let's talk about freestanding versus non-freestanding. A freestanding tent is one that does not require any stakes in the ground in order for it to stand upright. Why is that important? Well, with a freestanding tent, you can clean them a little bit better. Sometimes you can pick them up and shake them out. Also, they have more poles. They are a little bit more rigid, which can be useful when the weather turns bad. A non-freestanding tent, though, typically means less poles, which means less weight, which means lighter in your pack. So there are some trade-offs there that you just want to evaluate. Let's jump over and talk about poles for a minute. There are 3 different types of pole materials, starting with fiberglass, aluminum, and then also carbon fiber. Although carbon fiber is very, very rare in poles, it is an option out there. Fiberglass poles were what have been used for many, many years. However, they have been more outdated now. They're going to be bigger, heavier, and they have a tendency to break a lot easier and splinter, which is something that you never want on the trail. So the upgraded version of those is aluminum. Now with aluminum, you've got some different thicknesses you might want to look at for stability, some different aluminum types that you might want to look at and do a little bit of research when you're buying these. But an aluminum pole is going to be a very lightweight and sturdy pole, and you're never going to have to worry about it breaking on the trail as far as splintering out and causing issues in that way. Now the premium models that you might be able to find out there are a carbon fiber pole. These are extremely rare, extremely expensive, but you are going to be able to shave off a little bit of weight over aluminum, and also they are going to be slightly stronger than aluminum. Now if you really just hate poles but you do use trekking poles, you really might want to consider finding a system that can use your trekking poles. Now if you are looking for a system like that, I would just caution you to look for a system that you'll be able to have a little bit more headroom, as a lot of the trekking pole systems aren't going to provide a whole lot of headroom. Also, if you're an ultralight guy, you may even consider using a tarp type of a system and making do with sticks that you find, or even a tree that you can tie up to pick up the tarp for the headroom. So there are some ways to cut down on weight there. In the tent industry, it's very common for the tents to be rated about one person bigger than they actually are. So standard, if you get a 3-person tent, it's going to be extremely hard or extremely tight fitting inside of that tent to fit 3 people in. More commonly, that is a true 2-person tent. So evaluate that. The exception is when you get down to the 1-person tents. Those are always going to fit 1 person. However, a lot of times a 3-person tent will fit 2, a 4-person tent will fit 3. So take that into your evaluation. When we started this whole series, we started by talking about planning your trip and knowing the terrain and knowing what you're dealing with. That's extremely important when you're dealing with shelters, as different shelters might be rated for different seasons. Also, if you're going to be in an area with bugs, you would definitely need a bug net. But some areas don't have bugs year-round. Where we're from here in Utah, we definitely don't have bugs year-round. So buying a system that might be more modular, you might be able to use a bug net for part of the year and drop that bug net out at a later part of the year, can be a useful pro tip that you want to look at when you're evaluating your shelter system. As far as some guidelines for weights, if you're getting a 1-person type of a system, I would consider anything that is 4 pounds or less a lightweight option. But if you're looking for an ultralight option, you're going to be really looking for something in the 2 to maybe 2.5 pound range for a single person. If you're getting a 2-person setup, anything 6 pounds or under is going to be considered lightweight, and then anything under 4 pounds for 2 people again is what I would consider ultralight. Thanks for watching our 4th video in our gear guide for new backpackers. If you missed any of our previous videos, make sure to hop back and watch those. Also, if you want a checklist that we provide to help you be more prepared for your next trip, hop over to outdoorvitals.com/checklist, where you'll be able to get a download of that. Make sure that you are subscribed below and that you also are notified of our future videos by clicking that little bell notification, as we've got a few more videos in this series to help you get out there and enjoy the outdoors more.